It's good to see all of you, and it's good to be here. And a little humor in like this whole month is about abundance, and of course Malika shared a bun dance, rolls of bread that that we would serve and share. Does anybody know exactly what the title was supposed to be for today? The home office shared. Anybody? Go ahead and share that. More buns to share. And I want to talk about my bike trip. And honestly, after like 67 days, 305 miles, and losing 25 pounds, I ain't got no buns to share. So the truth is I needed something to align. And although it is about abundance, right? Because when you live after your passion and your dreams and things that are really your excitement inside of you, and you're aligned with that, and you're aligned with all the principles that we teach here, you are in flow with the natural abundance of the universe. True? Sure. Everything is happening for you and through you, and the greatest yet to be is happening in every single moment. And that's what I felt when I went through this entire trip. And I want to personally thank so many of you. Some of you have contributed in so many different ways. The posts that you were following, whether you were liking them or not, or were sharing them or not, or commenting, those were my little bit of inspiration. Every morning I would wake up and I would see all these little posts and stuff like that. And that gave me the excitement to keep writing. And that's one of the principles, is we can all support each other in their dreams. And little did I know that this community and all the other communities that I'm in touch with were behind the scenes actually seeing and supporting my vision in so many magical ways. So I want to thank you for that energy that I felt and the love that I felt. And I have slides to share, and I'm letting Cassie be my clicker today. So if I do this, I'm going to have you. Yeah, go ahead. That's the first slide. Let's go with that slide. And she said I talk with my hands, so accidentally I could be a projectile if I threw the clicker out at somebody. But we're gonna let her do that. So one of the things is you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be ready, you just have to know what your dream is. And that dream is whatever excitement. And it's not about trying to fit in and try to be like that bookmark of society that's exactly identical to everybody else. Quite often we get lost when we're in the state of comparison. When we're looking at everybody else or everything else, and we idolize certain people, well, let them be the inspiration, but we're never necessarily going to match an exact carbon copy of somebody else. True? It is discovering whatever that uniqueness is inside of us. And a lot of times it comes through in that playful understanding of when we were maybe a child. What did we do? What did we love? What are our innate gifts and talents? What are our challenges? Sometimes it's a challenge. I had a stuttering problem, a serious stuttering problem. I had a huge fear of public speaking. That was a challenge. But I think if it was not there, I probably wouldn't have overcome it. I probably wouldn't have had a desire to get through that, because I also had a father that was very determined and pushed me and actually got me early into some things that were around leadership and public speaking, because he felt it was a tool that was necessary not only to be able to share your ideas, but it built confidence in every other activity that you would do in life. And this is a fearful thing, more so than probably riding a bike across country. So you don't have to be perfect. I had this old Schwinn, it's like 30 years old. It was funny because I would be out there riding and I would show up with all these other cyclists, and they had all this modern technology. It was like, showing up to a party of Tesla driving a 1972 Ford Pinto with rust in the rear quarter panel and burning oil. So it was like people were like, and here I am, I'm 63 years old. So I'm not the average cyclist age. And I'm preparing in a state that's basically flat. You try to prepare in Florida for the Rockies, you can't do that. So, and I didn't even prepare. I kind of procrastinated. So it wasn't until I actually got on the road that getting in shape became possible as I moved forward. And that's the truth. It's the more you step into your dream, whatever that dream is, things start to unfold. We live in our fears and doubts and worries and feeling that I'm not ready, I'm not good enough. who am I to even do this? We talk ourselves out of it before even moving. And it's in movement that makes it all happen. So now that I have an old bike and I actually repaired it and, did pretty much everything to it except for I forgot to replace my chain. I broke that the first day. I wasn't even outside of Washington, D.C., and I'm climbing a little hill on a path, and I get up, and it's like, snap. I'm like, uh-oh. But I had the chain tool, I had the extra links, and I was repairing. And there's everybody who's coming by was like, can I help you? What can I do? Can I help you? And I got that support continuously throughout my entire journey. And then on top of that, not only was I not ready, I had some health issues. I actually had some things that were going on that actually I felt like, well, maybe I should put this off. How many times have we all had that? Something comes up right at that moment when we're ready to surge out the door, and it becomes that ultimate block. We're like, what do I do? And I actually had something that was going on that I was like, do I see a doctor? I got so many days, like 3 days from now, I'm going to be on the train. And then in the morning of the day that I'm getting ready to board a train, I wake up and my right hand is numb and I'm not able to coordinate, like picking up a cup of coffee, which was the first thing I was doing in the morning. It was like, I'm picking up with my left hand because there's something going on. And this is the hand I got to shift, click through the gears and brake with. I mean, both hands I have to do that with. But what could this be? And something inside of me said, the moment you move towards your dreams, your desires, your goals, everything will flow with you, including the sense of being healed. And I felt that sense, so I confidently decided to move forward. And I had interviewed a doctor from Sarasota on my podcast, like 8 months prior to that, Dr. Harvey Kalsis. And he basically, one of the questions when I asked him in the interview was, what is one of the most important things for our health? And he thought for a moment, and he said a sense of purpose. Because I noticed my patients that come in, the ones that are living from purpose, living their desires, their dreams, their goals, the ones that are confidently moving in that direction, it's like as if the cells of their body are working for them. It's not that they don't get sick, it's just that they tend to heal quicker. And so for me, that hand issue went away right away. And matter of fact, I had a rash that I had for years. It's gone. It's totally gone. I felt like I was getting younger. I felt like I was in my 20s again. As I was climbing the Rocky Mountains, and I have not only this old bike, which is a little bit heavier, the steel bike. Everybody's got aluminum. Everybody's got carbon fiber, titanium. I've got an old steel bike. And I'm carrying packs and everything between bike and everything I'm carrying is 100 pounds. Actually, it was more than that. When I got to Pittsburgh, I shipped some home. I realized it was like when I was riding the hills in Pennsylvania, I realized this is a decision I need to make. What do I not need? I'm bringing an iPad that I'm not even using. I get extra clothes that I don't necessarily need. And cyclists tend to figure out how to wash and do laundry on the way and hang them off the back of their bike so it's like the nature's best dryer in a hot sun as you're going. Like, did that guy just fly by me with some underwear? So part of that is you figure things out as you begin to move. We don't know what we don't know. When we live in the mind of fear, we live in the mind of doubt. And people were asking me, like, where are you going? Well, I'm going to the West Coast. And be like, can you be more, specific? I said, yeah, the Pacific. You're right, the Pacific. I don't know exactly where. And if we can advance the slide. So this is kind of faint. Wow, that's really hard to see. I went into a white abyss of like snow. No, there's actually a map. There's actually a map there.
Oh, yeah. We see it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's called the Great American Rail Trail. A group got together called railstotrails.org, and they created all these rail trails. Railroads are no longer being used. And they're magnificent. They're fantastic. I mean, you don't have to be in traffic. You can ride in shades quite often. You're out in nature. And you get to see other cyclists. And I've discovered this Great American Rail Trail, which was this project that they've had going on for a while, which allows you to go from Washington, D.C. to Washington State. And so I downloaded the map, and I actually got their app, and I started to research it, and I started to go on other people who were putting YouTubes that were doing this. And I was realizing that the pros and cons of it. But the biggest thing for me was I could get my bike for $20 on a train to Washington, D.C., and this is where this trail started. First decision. It moved me, it got me, and it got me started. And in life, quite often, that's all we need to do. We just need to move forward passionately, whatever that is. As things started going, if you go to the next slide, and that's the portion right there that's highlighted, at least you can see that. I was going from Washington, D.C., up the C&O Canal, beautiful nature. It was wonderful. There was plenty of camping. There were free campsites. First come, first serve, pick your perfect site. And there was basically, most of them were empty. There was a few other cyclists and hikers. And then when I went on the Gap Trail, the Great Allegheny Passage, which went through Pennsylvania all the way to Pittsburgh, that was fantastic. And there was a lot of camping opportunities and ability to meet other cyclists there as well. And then as I got into Ohio, things got a little strange, and there were some trails that were not connected, some were under construction. So I realized that things were starting to become challenging, and I had to use another app that actually got me on the road to make it from one trail to another trail to another trail. And actually got to one moment where I got to the end of a trail, and I was using my GPS to kind of like preload what would I do next, like when I got to the end of this trail. And I got to the end of this trail, and I took my phone out, and there's no cell signal. All I did was I stood there and I said, well, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I go? Because there's only a left or a right. There really wasn't any other option but a left or a right. There was a tiny little butterfly. This is the most amazing story. There was a tiny little yellow butterfly that actually flew. And it was very weird because it kind of like was flying directly at me, and it circled around me, and it started going down to the left. And I'm like, Mr. Butterfly or Miss Butterfly or whatever, is like the left the right way to go? And it repeated that pattern. And when you're observant of nature, and this really cued me in, this is said, this is consciousness. This is something that's going on here, because I don't see butterflies do this that often. And so I started moving to the left, and I started cycling. And you know that little butterfly started kind of, like by my handlebars? For a while. I mean, I picked up speed and didn't stay, but for a while. And eventually when my phone kicked in, I was going the right way. So there's some magic in the universe that is going to support your journey, and it's going to come through people, places, and things, and the synchronicities of the universe. Everything's going to unfold on your journey the moment you start moving forward. And as I got further along on that path, I eventually got to a place in Kokomo, Indiana. And I was frustrated because the night before that, I was struggling to find a campsite. And actually, campsites were getting tougher and tougher. And hotels or any other accommodation that I could find. And I always had this affirmation that by sunset, I will have an accommodation, one way or another. And I always did. But I wanted it to be somewhat easy. And it was just basically no free campgrounds. And the campgrounds that I would find were typically the campgrounds I would make. I would ask the Parks Department, can I sleep in your park? One police officer actually did. He opened up the gates. Actually, he says, I locked the gates. Follow me. I was riding, following his police car to the park. He locked me in the park. And he says, there's a side door. You can get out anytime you want. But I have to lock the gate at a certain time. And nobody will bother you. Nobody will drive in. And I'll leave the bathrooms unlocked, because you normally lock the bathrooms too. I'm thinking that if you lock the gate, why do you lock the bathrooms? But anyways, he left the bathrooms unlocked for me. And so I had a perfect place to stay. But I found this getting more challenging. So when I get to Kokomo, Indiana, I had gone to an app, and the app is called Warm Showers, and if you're familiar with that, it's basically couch surfing. It's where cyclists are supporting other cyclists, and they're willing to host. And actually, I'm a host for Sarasota, Florida, so if the cyclists come through Sarasota, Florida, they can find me, and I have a bed, and I have a shower, and I have I could cook for them and help them do laundry, so it's cyclists supporting other cyclists. So I found this lovely couple on a farm in Kokomo, Indiana, Bill and Cassie, a different Cassie. She spells hers with a C. And they were very, very helpful, and I discussed the challenges I had with campgrounds. And they said, you know what, we were planning to do the exact same trip that you did, but 2 years ago we changed our mind, and we actually did the adventure cycling route, which is the oldest route, which is the Trans-American. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. And he downloaded this app, and he showed me on his phone this Trans-American route, which was south of where I was, quite a bit south of where I was. And I look at it and I said, what are those green dots? And he zoomed in on his phone. He goes, those are all campgrounds. I said, what are the blue dots? Well, those are grocery stores. What are those red dots? Those are bike shops. I'm like, how do I get this app? So I ended up deciding at that point to make a change through the inspiration of what and they did this entire trip themselves. And they said, literally, we would go into towns, there would be banners, welcome cyclists. There'd be restaurants and convenience stores that would have the little logo for adventure cycling in their window. They were geared to support the activity of cyclists that were coming through their town, both east and west. So I decided this makes a lot of sense. And there was this thing called the Katy Trail, which is the famous trail that every cyclist likes to ride through Missouri. And I looked at the map, and I'm like, wow, if I can go from Kokomo, Indiana, and I can go down to the Katy Trail, and I can ride the Katy Trail, then I can get off the Katy Trail, and then I can go a little bit further, and I can get on this Trans-American and ride the Trans-American the rest of the way. So if you advance the slide, that's kind of how I changed it. Everything, again, in life that you're met with, whether they're challenges or inspirations or opportunities, whatever, will change your pathway. Whether your venture is creating that next business or writing a book, or maybe it's an art project or music, whatever the thing that is birthed inside of you that is the dream, go after it, but don't be fixated in mind that it has to be a certain way. Because insistence creates resistance. The more that we insist that things have to be a certain way, right? I'm going to the Pacific. I don't have to be specific. The moment we know that we're going to get there anyways, we relax to the inspiration and the synchronicities and everything that's going to be thrown our way to help us get us there, including the people. So Bill and Cassie were wonderful. I downloaded the app. I actually found out as soon as I mapped it, I went right past a friend, a colleague that I used to work for like 30 years ago. I worked in the same company with this guy, living in the same house. And I'm like, wow, he's 70 miles from Kokomo. And I'm like, I could probably just call him up and stay with him. And I did. And then I went back to that Warm Showers app, and I all right, it's like connecting the dots. I need 5 more places to stay before I get to the Katy Trail. And everybody, I sent a message through the app, like, sure. So I stayed with the most amazing people. And of course, I got to the Katy Trail. I rode the Katy Trail, and I absolutely loved that. I found coming out of the woods one morning, there was a runner that was running to me. And I was always getting up and planning my day early. So I always figured I would backtrack. This is sunrise, so 6:30 is sunrise. 30 minutes before that is, dawn. So we're light is happening, right? Takes me about an hour to cook my coffee, eat my breakfast, pack my tent. So I was always waking up an hour beforehand. And this particular morning, I had gotten up a little bit earlier, and I put my lights on my bike, and I started heading down this trail. And here's this light. This guy's wearing one of those headlights, and he's jogging, and he's a little bit taller than me, and he's coming from the other way, and his name was Jack. And we stopped and we talked, and he was running across country. And I'm like, at least I have opportunities to coast. And of course, well, it was a wonderful conversation. We took a selfie. I posted it on Facebook. But as we all know, we got a journey that we need to continue on. So he had to go his way. I had to go my way. But it was amazing that the people that I uncovered along the way. So it's knowing this, and even when what I thought was the most amazing thing was I set on this trip alone. I decided to go on this alone. There's groups you can go with, but I decided to go on this alone. And there's magic that happens when it's alone, but sometimes you need the strength. You need what I would say the people that help you and you help them. So if you go to the next slide. At about the halfway point across country, literally the halfway point across country in the middle of Kansas, I'm riding down a road and I've got a voice I hear behind me and he said, "Are you going west?" And he saw my bags and he goes, "Are you going like all the way to the West Coast?" And I slowed down, I stopped, and I'm like, we're on a busy road. So we decided, let's go find a restaurant and talk. And here this person, beautiful person named Nate Johnson, who had one of the state-of-the-art bikes. I mean, he spent thousands and thousands. He looked at my bike. Quite a few people looked at my bike at the early part of my journey and said, like, "You're going across country on that? You?" And then when I got to the western part of the United States, like Arizona, California, "Wow, you went across country on that? You, hey." So part of that was, knowing that you've got what it takes, but when you merge with another individuals, and this is going to happen when you're on your journey, not everybody is going to support you. Not everybody's going to be there for you. Matter of fact, don't seek approval from the outside world if you're not going to always get it. Some will, some won't. You all supported me, and I thank you for that. But sometimes the closest people to us, sometimes the people that we grow up with, for various, maybe because they love us and they're worried about us, for some reason, they can cause some of that resistance, some of that fear to come up. True? They may, it's not that they don't want you to succeed, but they may be kind of, go out and get the regular job thing. Do what everybody else do. Their version of happiness for you is not necessarily your version of happiness. So quite often we will not get the approval of others, but we will certainly, as we move in a direction, we'll get the approval and we'll get the support and we'll get the love and we'll get the sharing and we'll get everything else that is necessary to grow. So when I met Nate, we go in this restaurant, and the first thing he shares is like, "I was ready to quit twice." And I'm like, "You just met the person that never quits." My strengths and his strengths were different. He had like every knowledge about bikes. I actually had lost a screw that was supporting the rack in my bike somewhere in New Mexico. And I'm like, all right, we're riding down a dirt road. My panniers are flopping. I didn't realize where I lost the screw because it's probably been going on for a while. I got to look for this tiny little screw. And here he goes, reaches into his bag. He's got that screw. He's like, "Oh, it's the same as a water bottle screw, Ron. They fit every single thing in his bike. It's the same thing that would fasten your water bottle cage to your bike." So I didn't know that. But he also would plan every route the night before. Because I don't know how you can just wake up and just ride. I need to know where I'm going. He had not only the elevation, he had every little detail, like there was a profile where it showed the red zones, like where it was steeper, the percentage of grade, and he had the wind direction. And it's like, I was like, this is too much data. I just want to ride. For me, eventually when you're riding to the top of a mountain, eventually you get to the top. And you eventually then, have the opportunity to coast down the other side. I mean, it happens. Believe me, it happens. So, and the only difference between wind the only basic difference between wind, having a headwind, a strong headwind, and riding up a mountain, it's the same amount of resistance, it's the same amount of strength and endurance that you've got to pedal. The mountain, you have a vista, you have a summit, you have some sort of satisfaction. I did it. The wind, you don't get that with. And in life, it's the same way. You'll overcome challenges in life and you'll say, "Hey, I did it." And there'll be these long aggravations of things in your life that'll be like the wind. You'll be like, "How? I don't even know what that was for. I didn't even get the message." But I'm glad it's over. So the same thing that happened on the bike. So Nate basically, we figured out, we didn't start riding together right away, but we exchanged phone numbers, and I said, listen, if we can help each other get to the other side, get to the Pacific, then that would be great. And we could split costs. We could split costs on campgrounds, we can split costs on hotels, we could split costs on pizzas. I mean, this was, to me, made more sense, and we can support and motivate each other and could be there for each other if our bikes break down or we need that extra motivation to get to the top of the next hill. And so it was absolutely wonderful. And I made a friend. He had started in Cape May. He started outside of Atlantic City. He's from Philadelphia. And he went, it's funny, he stayed at some of the same warm showers. We crossed paths a few times, and we ended up at the same point at one time. And that was the point where we decided to then continue the journey together. So that will happen in your life too. What doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have the next business partner, right? But as you pursue whatever that idea is, being in a business or dream or whatever, there will come the people and the support along your journey to help you carry it through. If you can go to the next slide. These were basically the people that I met. Now, there's probably many more people that I just didn't take a selfie with. It was like, some of these was like, wow, this is interesting. Can I get a selfie? And then I would try to post them and tell a little story about them. Some of these were the warm showers that I stayed at, some of the people I found on that app. And they were amazing. Well, they were all cyclists. I get to listen to their stories. Some rode not just within the United States, some rode internationally. Some of them were actually bike mechanics. They had all the tools. So, it's like you show up, it's like pulling into a pit stop with your car in a racetrack. You get, I'm going to fix everything on here. Let me check your tire pressure, right? So you got the tune-up. They all cooked for you. There was one person, just the bottom one, next to the girl with the dog, the one over there. His name is Jerry, and he's lost everybody in his family, and he's like, cycling is my only thing. It's the thing I just love to do. And he was that next weekend riding 2 back-to-back centuries, 200-mile rides he was riding. And it was just, and he had a garden in the backyard, so he picked vegetables. He made a pasta that was just unbelievable. They love it when you stop by because you're actually part of their journey as well. So everybody, and if there was one couple, if you see at the very top, the kids in the family, the young couple, they were from Terre Haute. He had just created a warm showers profile like 3 days before, and I was like the guy that reached out to him. I was the first cyclist. Their oldest daughter did this chalk art. Like I wrote in, I'm looking for the house, and there's this chalk art that says, "Welcome cyclists," in front of their house. And I'm like, wow, I'm at the right place. And she did a little painting for me too. And so it's just wonderful how everything seems to unfold as you start to continue in that direction. There's so many stories that I can go on. I met the two on the tandem, if you see that down in the bottom here. They were coming across country, recently married. I think it was their honeymoon crossing on a tandem, that one right there. And I was on a Katy Trail, and I actually met a lady by the name of Katie. New Mexico, just Santa Fe. I mean, just so many wonderful places, and you see Nate's in there a couple of times too. But it was just amazing, the inspiration and the energy and the love that I found from so many other people. And so, go ahead, next slide. So what about yourself? What about your dream? What about your goals? What about your desires? What about your aspirations? What is the thing that's, inside of you that is the song within your heart that only that you can sing, that only that you can bring to life, that divine energy that's being expressed? Now more than ever, I believe our time is ripe to be able to step into this. Places like this, the Center for Spiritual Living, support your goals, your visions, your dreams. I would say if you're not into any of the studies here, I would study, because the study that you learn is the basic laws of the universe and how they work. I applied that continuously throughout my journey. My number one thing was my affirmations. I lived in faith and not fear. If I saw a mountain that was, my affirmation was, I am stronger than that mountain. I am strength. If I was riding down a highway, I am protected. Cars go around me. They respect me. Drivers see me. I am protected. I have accommodations. I always know that before sunset, I will be somewhere and I will be lying down. I'm divinely taken care of. And then I would thank you, thank you, thank you. I would live in the gratitude as I would pedal forward. So I was the pedaling affirmation guy. And I think I posted one of my posts online, and I was, normally I took the volume off and I would add a song. I would use TikTok for that. And TikTok for me is like, I'll say one thing, and this is one thing I had to take to heart. This may resonate with some people. Don't let your screen time take away from living your dream time. Yes. Be mindful of the distractions of things that are out there in the world. I had taken every social media app off my phone, and my daughter said, Dad, you're getting ready to ride across country. You need to put that stuff back so you can communicate to the world. I no longer have a TV set, so I got rid of that, but I actually went back and I put these apps on my phone, and I realized that I'm doing this to be able to communicate, and I'm so thankful for all the love that I've received in the back. But we need to sometimes know that, are we getting lost within this? You can truly get inspiration from a great YouTube video, but you can also be the mindlessly wandering. I don't know if you've ever been that way, but the truth is we have so many hours in a day, and if you lived every day as your last day, there's some famous quote somebody shared, if you lived every day as your last day, sooner or later, one day you will be right. It's inevitable. But if we lived every day as our last day, what would you do? What would be that desire, that dream, that goal that only you can bring forth? Step forward into that. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have it perfect. You don't have to have the perfect shiny bike. Movement in any direction in a direction of your dream is good movement. Know that the universe will support the dream, the desire, and move forward in faith, not in fear. If fear comes up, embody that affirmation and affirm the truth. I am a divine being of grace. I know that Spirit supports me. I know that as I move forward, everything will unfold perfectly and beautifully. I'll end with one final story. I reached the Santa Monica Pier. It was wonderful. I did the tire dip. Every cyclist is supposed to do this, bring your bike down, and at the time I was bringing my bike down, it was like the biggest wave ever kind of came up and hit me, and then I get out. After that's done, I said goodbye to Nate and said goodbye to, he had one of those friends there that was meeting us. And so I got to go 10 more miles down the coast to El Segundo, which is where I stayed at a hotel before I flew home. And I realized that, my back derailleur was the first thing that went. It's like, I can't shift my back derailleur. So I was stuck like in my hardest gear. And then I had an issue with my front derailleur. It's like, okay, I can't shift down in that either. So I'm now stuck in like this difficult gear, but I'm like, no big deal, 10 miles, it's all flat. It's a beautiful ride if you've ever ride. It's the boardwalk. It's where people ride their bikes and where they walk. It's got the beach. It's got the ocean. I was in glory. I'm like, this is easy. Until I got to El Segundo. It was like a mile-long hill. And I looked at that and I'm like, okay, well, I can do one or two things. I can get off and I can walk my bike, or I can just do what I can, do the best I can, stand up, crank, give it all that I got, and ride to the top of this hill, and then eventually that'll get me to my hotel. It's the last I got, right? Over this journey, I'm done after that. Ship the bike home and get on a plane. And I started pedaling, and halfway up, I'm like, I don't know. These thoughts are coming over my mind. Should I get off and walk? And I'm like, I'm running out of breath, and I'm going a little bit further. I'm like, the top is getting closer, and I'm like huffing and puffing. And I get all the way to the top. Little did I know, a gentleman about half my age on one of these skinny little tire racing bikes comes up right behind me and he goes, "Man, that was impressive." I wanted to say thank you, but I couldn't breathe. So I was like, but to go 3,500 miles and to get some sort of, affirmational reward from a stranger like that was like, that felt pretty good. So again, whatever that is, you'll have those hills that you'll have to climb, that you'll have to give it all you got. And you may hear those rewards and affirmations from other people, but go after your dreams.